Still here, there are 2 points I'd like to make about that. He mentioned testimony. We did not invite representatives of HHS or DHS to this hearing today. We did not today. What we have done with these expert witnesses is have the first hearing. We are having a document production. I invited Senator Graham, Senator Cornyn to join, Senator Padilla and myself for documentation to follow forward. On the 85,000 sponsors or children that are unaccounted for, it is my understanding that after they have identified, ORR has identified a sponsor, and the children are placed with that sponsor, the follow-up to find out how they are doing is a very poor one, in my estimation. It's a series of telephone calls, 3 telephone calls to the sponsor, and if they have not answered after the 3rd call, they're listed as not being reached. We had testimony here from witnesses that these young people have no legal representation necessarily, and so it's up to the sponsor to link up with ORR, and it's not happening, which I think is a deficiency in the system that's very obvious. I think Senator Ossoff is next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to associate myself with Senator Blumenthal's remarks.
Excuse me, Senator Ossoff, I've made a grievous error.
Wow, we'll get through this together, Mr. Chairman.
Senator
Sorry.
Graham is next. I'm sorry.
I'll be brief. Senator Hawley, we do need to have the administration here, and hopefully we will. So let's see if we can find some common ground here. Of all the witnesses, how many of you agree with the following statement, that the system is broken and needs to be fixed? Who thinks the system is working? Let's do it the other way. Raise your hand. Well, nobody raised their hand. So bottom line is, I think it's broken, and I'd like to fix it. Now, how do you fix it? You punish people who exploit children as one fix. You change your policy so it's not so incentivized to have unaccompanied minors come. Ms. Gersten, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Why do you think there's been a 300+% increase in unaccompanied minors coming to the border since 2020?
I'm not here to talk about that today. My expertise is in labor law enforcement.
Fair enough. Ms. Basham, can you give us an answer to that question?
Well, I don't know for certain, but I will tell you this, that it's probably a combination of factors. And I do know when it comes to human trafficking in general, we can talk about all sorts of things, but the root cause is actually the criminals themselves. And so when we talk about push factors and pull factors, those have to be addressed because at the end of the day, it's a crime of luring. So they are luring the mothers to oftentimes hand over their children, and they don't really know what's ahead of them. So I know Chairman Durbin spoke of, a terrible testimony that you'd heard in Chicago, and I do not believe that many of those who are coming know what lies ahead. That's first. And I also believe that the root is actually the criminals themselves. And so, as I think Senator Tillis said earlier, this is really a crime where we are dealing with they're making money off the sale of people. They could be making money off the sale of drugs. They could be making money off the sale of weapons, but they're making money off the sale of people. And so you have to deal
Is the Taliban involved in this, you mentioned?
So the Taliban, I don't believe, I have no evidence of that directly with this, but I will tell you that sex trafficking itself is a huge money-making operation for every single terrorist network in the world. So whether we're dealing with ISIS or we're dealing with Boko Haram in West Africa, whether we're dealing with what I would call adversarial nations, they all use versions of human trafficking to fund their operations, all of them.
So, Mr. Chairman, there are 3 countries, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, that make up the vast majority of unaccompanied minors. So I would recommend that we have the ambassadors of those countries come and talk to the committee. We don't have to do it publicly, but privately, and see if we can find some kind of agreement with the countries to do more on their end. I'm willing to help them do more. I'm certainly willing to punish them if they don't. So it seems to me that one of the reasons you have so many more coming is that the narrative is if you get an unaccompanied child to the United States, chances are they're not going to be sent back to these 3 countries. We need to change our policy and treat these 3 countries, and really all countries, as if they were Canada and Mexico. This non-contiguous policy is incentivizing this. And the money to be made, Ms. Basham, we'll go back to you. The average unaccompanied minor doesn't just leave the house and walk to America. Somebody guides them through, is that correct?
Correct. Correct.
And who are these somebodies?
Smugglers,
Smugglers.
coyotes.
So there is a criminal enterprise built around unaccompanied minors, and we know what countries are the biggest offenders. So why don't we start, Ms. Chairman, with trying to find some agreement with these countries to deal with this problem, and I'm willing to do incentives, carrots, sticks. Maybe that help can't hurt. When it comes to stopping the problem, you're going to need immigration reform. And I'm hoping we can find some foothold on immigration reform. But the explosion in numbers, 300-something% increase in 2 years, there's a way to stop it if you want to, and slow it back down and get the numbers down. And Mr. Chairman, that's going to require a policy change. This administration has to come to grips with the fact that their policies are failing miserably in this area. Thank you.